Welcome back to Mission Single. I'm Kelly. What is the most adventurous thing you've ever done with your money? Today, I'm joined by Lisa Clements, who's gone on her own financial adventure twice. But what makes Lisa's story so compelling is that she has found a calling to help single women frustrated by financial advisors, either ignoring them or telling them to just wait until you're married to start planning. Having navigated major life decisions on her own, Lisa offers both professional expertise and personal insight into the unique challenges single women face. But her journey reminds us that our greatest adventure isn't about the risks we take with our finances or careers, but about trusting the God who controls our future, the one who promises to be our ultimate provider and source of security. Let's dive in with Lisa. What is the most adventurous thing you have ever done with your money?
Oh, I would say I set aside a chunk of money in order to learn how to trade options, which is a derivative of stocks. And so that was something that was
Okay.
pretty adventurous because I knew going into it that I wasn't going to get rich. Like it was a learning experience. The other one would be funding my career change. Yeah. So those would be my
Your two adventures. I
adventures.
can
Yes.
identify with you on funding your career change. I've definitely done that with starting Mission Single.
Yes. Yes. Every day praying, like, God, I think you told me to do this. I'm hoping I'm on the right track.
So you are a financial advisor, and we know that you've dabbled now in stocks and trading and all of that, but you have an interesting focus on single women. So what made you shift your career?
I was in corporate HR for 24 years. I actually went to school to be a high school English teacher, taught for 1 year and was like, I love kids. I love the kids, but the system, the parents, the administration, the everything, I don't think this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I was making a pittance for the amount of work that goes into it.
So kudos to all of the teachers out there, right?
Yeah. Shout out to my teacher, sisters. But I was in that for 24 years and, had always contributed to my 401k, had saved money, and eventually started working with a financial advisor. Actually, had a couple along the way. And I got frustrated with the fees. Like they were charging me 1% or 1.25% of the amount of money they were managing. They charged that annually. They were doing a very conservative, like very basic investment strategy. Why am I paying 1.25% for this? And they weren't looking at my taxes. They weren't talking to me about estate planning, ways that I could increase my income. And so that's what really prompted me to dig in. And then that led to me talking to a lot of my single girlfriends who had these experiences of going to financial advisors where the advisor would say things like, oh, well, don't worry about that. We can talk about that when you get married. And I was like, what? Somebody said that to you? Oh my gosh. Like we have control over that. Yeah, I'm purposely not getting married.
Right.
I also have friends who are married who have gone to financial advisors and they say that the financial advisor will spend their time talking to their husband. And that bothers me as well because it's like there's this learned helplessness that I think women pick up. Oh, it's money. It's so confusing. And my husband knows it all. So I'll just let that ride.
My mom has always been the one who handles the finances, but I know for most couples, it's maybe not that way.
My mom handled the finances of our family as well, but she was a stay-at-home mom while I was a kid. My dad was in commercial real estate, and that's a commission-based job. And so all I knew was that, oh, dad just had a big closing. Woo, we're going out to eat. Things are really good. And then, oh, we're going to tighten up for a little bit. No, there hasn't been a closing for a while. And so there was this awareness of money, but I didn't fully understand what was going on. And that's fairly typical for women and even men, to be honest. There is a societal expectation that men get money better than we do. Women are often called splurgers or spenders. How come that's only a female term and not a male term? The language is different when you're talking stocks and bonds and derivatives and invest in a mutual fund versus an exchange traded fund. This language that sounds very difficult. I think women also, we think, well, if we don't make a lot of money, if we're not six-figure women, then we go, oh, well, I don't need a planner because I don't make that much anyway. So it's not like I need tax planning, or I spend money on things I shouldn't. And there's a lot of guilt. And I talk to women and I'm like, no, you should spend money on that. Like that, like
That's allowed, huh?
yeah, you're allowed to do, this is your money.
You have been never married woman, just like me. And so how has that experience, that personal experience, really shaped your approach to money management?
I don't know what I would have done without my faith in this process. It has been so easy to feel insurmountable pressure on me. Like, you got to make it, Lisa. You got to do it. Come on, it's all up to you. You're the only one. When do you buy a house? Do you rent? How long do you rent? When you buy a house, how much do you really want to spend on a house? How much should you put down? When it's time to get a car, do you lease a car or do you just buy a car? Do you buy used or do you buy new? Because they're better financing on, like, all of that is all in my head, all by myself, going round and round. And it's not that I don't have a supportive family. I appreciate their input. At the end of the day, it's still all up to me. And that feels like such a burden. Oh, I just made this huge financial decision. And you want to look to someone and either get like a pat on the back or have somebody like make a face like, oh, I don't know if you should have done, like I just any kind of feedback whatsoever.
Something.
So valuable. And I think that pressure can really get to you. In a way, it was very motivating to me because I've always worked very, very hard and took the most complex jobs I could and the biggest assignments I could and the furthest distance away I could. And because it was all about, I got to make sure I have enough. I got to make sure I have enough. And I think I would have operated out of that pressure more often than I even did. Had it not been for my faith and that constant reminder from scripture that I am not the provider, God is the provider. I am not responsible for my provision. God is responsible for my provision.
You have said that tithing really brings freedom, and it seems like that has really impacted the decisions that you make financially. So could you explain what you mean by tithing brings freedom?
The beginning of this year was behind in my tithe because I've been doing, starting my own business a couple years ago, and cash flow has not been consistent. And so I got behind. And in January, I was like, Lisa, this is a biblical principle. I figured out to the best that I could how much I was behind. And I was like, just to be safe, I'm going to add a couple hundred to it. And I went to, church in January and tithed $1,200 and was like, okay, all right, it's okay. Don't worry, like within the month, I purchased a URL on GoDaddy because I thought maybe they'll do something with this later in my life. And I got an email from GoDaddy saying somebody's interested in buying your URL. Here's an offer for $500. And I said, I'll sell it for $1,000. And they came back and said, done. And I was like, oh my gosh, like within the month, $1,000 back on this thing that I had purchased 5 years ago and totally forgotten about.
I think it's about our heart, our posture towards money and our posture toward God, and just building that heart of trust in him, whether it comes back to you from selling a URL or it doesn't, right? Like you were faithful and obedient to do what God was calling you to do and saying, this money is not mine, it's yours. And I wouldn't have it to begin with. And so I think he changes us and our hearts and our mindset in the process. And then we can probably see those blessings even more fully and celebrate them and have a much more grateful heart in that when we know that we've been obedient and say, hey, whether I get this back or not, I'm still doing it because it's the Lord's.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because I'm sure there are times when I've tithed and it hasn't, within a month the money comes back like that. I don't know if
Right.
that's a normal experience, but you're
But it's
absolutely,
great when it happens.
yeah. Yeah, I'll take it. But you're right. It's about a heart posture.
So, what is your best financial management tip or tips for single women that they can start implementing today?
Make sure you're using your Roth. If you have some kind of a retirement plan, set aside a portion of your income to go into your 401k or a 403b or 457 if you're with the government. It's nice because it reduces your taxable income this year, but you're going to have to pay taxes on that money and any investment growth later on in life when you do decide to pull it out in retirement. A Roth allows you, it's after tax money. So you're putting in, if I'm putting in 10%, instead of putting in $10, I'm putting in, like $7 because the government already took their piece out of it. But once it's in there, you never pay tax on the core contribution amount or the investment growth for the rest of your life. And I had heard about Roth when I was in my 20s. And I thought, I'll just put a little in pre-tax and a little in Roth. But man, I wish somebody would have said, put it all in Roth. The other thing is, once you put money in a retirement account, remember it has to be invested. So I have a friend who put money into her 401k and it sat there in cash. And I'm like, no, 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 you got to actually buy stock. You actually have to buy bonds. You have to choose your investments in your retirement account. And the third and final thing I'll say, everything I've read says that women prefer saving to investing. So, and this has been true with my female clients where I meet them and they have $75,000 in a savings account. And I'm like, oh my gosh, first of all, congratulations. The problem is the money in the savings account just isn't going to grow. It's not going to be able to benefit from compound interest. It's not going to benefit from the fact that we are in a capitalist society that has a free market that is growing in value year upon year upon year. And so these women are really doing a disservice to themselves by keeping $75,000 in cash. I definitely think you should have an emergency fund, but maybe you need 20 to 30,000 to be as a generous emergency fund. Make sure that whatever your emergency fund is in, that it's in a high yield savings account like Ally Bank, Tab, TAB, Lending Club is another one I recommend. But then the rest of that money needs to be invested because you're missing out on thousands of dollars of growth if it's just sitting in savings.
Great tips. We've already touched upon how isolated single women can feel. And I don't think single women are the only ones because there's been increasing discussion about the epidemic of loneliness in our society. And most other cultures around the world have a more communal approach to living. What are your thoughts on how that differs from the typical American approach?
Yeah, I found that a lot when I was living in India and in the Philippines, that the family unit sticks together. There is such a focus on independence and self-reliance here. It really got me in my 20s. I had a series of events that happened. I was mugged at gunpoint. Then within months, in a car accident, I was standing up in all these weddings. My friends were dropping like flies, getting married here and there and here and there. And I ended up struggling with depression. And I started seeing a therapist, and he suggested, what if you move home for a little while? Living by
Mm.
yourself is very difficult. And my first reaction was, are you kidding? Like, oh, what a failure would I be? Move home for a while, live with my mommy. And, like it was just such a
Right, right. Mm-hmm.
shame-filled idea that gosh, boy, I really wasn't strong enough to handle difficult challenges in my life. And the more that we talked about it,
Mm-hmm.
the more that I processed that, had good conversations with my mom about it. Why are we so shamed for wanting to stay connected with our family of origin or wanting to move in with family for a couple years? It was the best, absolute best thing I could have done. And I have a sister who is 11 years younger than me. And so she was still in high school at the time. And I got evenings getting ready for bed in the bathroom with her and stuff that I would have never been able to experience if I had bought into the lie that I had to be self reliant. I needed to stay on my own. And I look back on that now, and it was just a matter of 2 years, I think I was there. And then I ended up buying a house. Yeah, it is so American to think that we have to be independent and do it all by ourselves. But remember, no decision is a lifetime decision. Everything can
Mm.
be undone. Everything. I think sometimes we blow things up to be such a monumental decision. I have to get this decision right. If I screw this up, oh man, I'm taking my whole life down into the toilet. It's like, no, no, no. Oh my gosh. Don't
Right.
put don't put so much pressure on yourself. We make decision we can. We continually seek God's will in our life. We do the best we can with the information we have available at the time.
Maybe we are looking at things too independently and self-reliant, and I think especially for single women it feels like, oh well, being independent, being married, that's when you've arrived into adulthood. You don't want to be still stuck at home, right? We are so focused on the nuclear family, which is the main place of care and discipleship and an ultimate place of belonging. How do you see that affecting single women in particular?
I have so struggled with that because I feel like the pulpit speaks to the family. The pulpit often speaks to married people. It makes me feel like I don't count. It makes me feel like I've failed because I haven't taken the path that everybody else took. As much as I can start to feel inferior or start to feel there must be something wrong with me, because everybody else found their person. I think it's so often easier to just leave the church and go find community somewhere else. And I hate that that's the case. I hate that it
Mm.
feels that way. Like right now, I am in between churches and I feel like I don't really belong anywhere. I keep
Wow.
praying about it, like, God, lead me to where you want me to plug in. I know that we are supposed to grow in fellowship. I know we're supposed to be in community with other believers, and I haven't found my place yet, I guess. Part of me wonders if God doesn't want me landed and in a community, but rather visiting a lot of different communities or getting involved in organizations that aren't necessarily church based, but are faith based. And then other times, I feel like, no, I need to just pick a church and just plug in and you just got to make it work. And I honestly don't have the answer yet. I don't. I'm 50 years old. And at this point, the pressure to be married isn't so much a pressure from the outside as much as it is my own personal desire. Like, I love the idea
Mm.
of having a mate and having a partner in crime, someone to do life with, someone to go, what do you want for
Yeah.
dinner? But at this point, like that may never happen. And and I got to be okay with that. I'm not going to give up. I don't know if there is a church for me or not. I think there will be, and I will keep praying about it. And I will keep hoping I will have an open enough spirit and mind to hear the Spirit's whisper, and Of
Mm.
course, I'm always praying, like, don't whisper, say it loud. I'm hard of hearing, Lord. Just, say it, spell it out. Let me know, I'm sorry.
I think that internal drive for deep fellowship is there, and it is from the Lord. How do we do this better? How do we create an environment where we are looking at the family of God and not just the nuclear family as a place of discipleship and connection and care for one another? We need each other to be able to grow and develop and image God well in the world in our various marital statuses. And so I'll be praying for that for you as well, that you can find the community and the place that He has for you, because He doesn't want us isolated.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why I so love this. I love the opportunity to learn about Mission Single, and what you're doing with this organization is so important to me because I don't think I'm alone. I don't think I'm unique. I think there are
We're not-
widows and divorcees and never married who probably very much feel very similar.
think as we figure out how to do how to do ministry together and life together, there will be opportunities to pull each other out of that isolation and feeling like we don't belong, because we do belong. And I think God is calling us to see that, because He sees, He knows, He is with us in that, and He wants His church to be different. He wants His people to be different. Thank you for your vulnerability and willingness to share that hard space.
Yeah, you bet.
Final question for you. What is the best piece of advice that you've ever received that has nothing to do with money?
One is about work and one is about life. Regarding work, the best advice I ever got was take the emotion out of it. I've always been driven and I run hot and I get intense and I work hard. And so when things wouldn't go right or whatever, like I couldn't sleep at night because I'd be noodling it around
Mm,
and rehearsing the conversation and I had a boss once saying to me, Lisa, it's work. Take the emotion out of it. What makes sense? Take the logical. And I was like, take the emotion out of it. How do you? I sleep a lot better if you're able to take the emotion out of it. And then just in life, my favorite phrase is to stay curious. Stay curious. There are so many times
mm,
when somebody says something and it feels like a personal affront or it feels insensitive. And especially, oh goodness, because we're in this political climate we're in right now. I just have to constantly say to myself, and even in relationships, even as I try um, and date, it's like, stay curious. Interesting. He responded that way. Oh, he's a jerk, or oh, he's insensitive, or oh, this is never gonna, instead meet it with curiosity. I wonder why that would be the case. I wonder why she would say that. I wonder why that family member would feel so strongly about that candidate. It takes you out of that into a position of a learner and a position of someone being open and going, gosh, aren't people interesting? Isn't that, like, dating right now is the hardest thing in the world, but man, isn't it interesting the kind of people I'm meeting?
Those are wonderful words of wisdom, Lisa. Thank you so much for being with us today. I just appreciated this conversation so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor to be able to talk to you. So thank you, Kelly.